Jai Hind doston. Today I'm so happy. I have one of my favorite speakers, a gentleman, a personality who, when I heard him speak, my goodness, I was truly mesmerized. They say a leopard or a tiger, if it attacks you, it will give out a roar and you'll be mesmerized. You'll have goosebumps. So I was literally mesmerized in the studio when the Chetan Sharma was speaking. I was like, first, before listening to the content itself, first thing आपका ध्यान कहाँ जाता है उनकी आवाज पे उसके बाद then you hear what he's speaking and like my goodness he's speaking so much of sense and the content is amazing. I would say मेरे पास दो दो या तीन मतलब मुश्किल से I don't like many speakers actually, but जब मैंने सुना चेतन सर को I was like wow. I told my friends I aspire one day to be speaking like that with that kind of gravity and so effortlessly. And the best part is, just yesterday when we spoke, and he said, I'll speak on anything. That was something like really cool. So, anyway, without further ado, and of course, he needs no introduction. He is doing excellent work in the education field. He's been an outstanding journalist of the country. He is, apart from all the numerous things that he's done. So, let's further on, without making much ado about it, let's go on to Mr. Chetan Sharma. Sir, Jai Hind, and thank you very much for spending time for us, sir.
Namaskar and Jai Hind to you as well. What a pleasure to reconnect with you, Major Ali. It's been a while since we last spoke. I was still trying to figure out whether being a leopard is a good thing or not, because when you talk about the spots, I'm always on the spot as far as, being the animalistic instinct is concerned. But thank you for your kind words. Much appreciated.
Thank you, sir. Sir, this is something one of my dreams actually, because I swear my close friend would bear witness to the fact how much you may not be aware behind your back, how much I even till now go on talking about you. I ask, and when people praise me, they compliment me for being for my TEDx talks or whatever, for my TV panels, I said no. But I would say my aspiration is when I become half as good as what Mr. Chetan Sharma does, how his delivery. So, first thing, were you always as a child always into dramatics, debates, communication, and did you always have this creative streak in you as a child,
Well, let's just first say that I'm still a child in many ways. And the moment I let the child away from me, I think half of me would be gone. I will have a very serious countenance. I would like to approach something with a lot of gravity, but the joy comes from being a child. And that's the way, you're able to be curious enough to see all facets of life in many a unique way. But it's correct to say that I was always inclined towards debate, towards dramatics, towards elocution, right from I think class two or something. It helped me in good stead all throughout. Yes, that's true to say, and a part of my journey actually emanated from there. I come from a conservative, stereotypical business family. Was born and brought up in Kolkata. Family belongs to UP. And business was the order of the day. We were fortunate to have good primary education. I think Calcutta produces some of the best kids. I'm not indicating it myself, but a lot of my peers who happen to come from that city have gone on to do some wonderful things in life. So yes, was a beneficiary of what was called the missionary education at that point of time, and there the inculcation of drama and debate as a method of expression was quite profound. And interestingly, it was bilingual. So that also held me in good stead. But yes, my interest levels were very high. And that's what led me to, follow a lot of what I can call a passion and try and convert it into a profession.
So let's talk about your deep, resonant, rich voice. Were you always, as a child, blessed with such a voice, and would you get compliments and you had girls swooning over you in school? What a voice and such a thing. What a magical voice. It's because you talk about it, your आपकी पहचान, आपकी आवाज आपकी पहचान है, sir. At the moment we take your name, you ask anyone, and they will say, "Oh, of course, what an amazing voice." So did you always बचपन से क्या वो आवाज कब आपको एहसास हुआ कि आपकी आवाज इतनी जबरदस्त है सर?
Well, thank you for the compliment, first of all. I'm very, I take great objection that you refer to everything as the past tense when it talks about girls swooning over. I mean, I'd like to believe I'm still in the race. But yeah, jokes aside, well, actually, if you ask me, I think I first realized the power of my voice was when I was relegated to the backbench in class two by my class teacher, because it was a singing class. Distinctly remember, and because I was able to be loud and clear, she said, "Listen, I don't want you to be standing in the front row because you tend to obstruct the other people, so you might as well go at the back." So that was the first time I realized, okay, maybe if there's something that has power in me, it's the voice. And then, of course, because of my basic addressing, was always from the back. So then there's more power to the voice. So I learned how to throw my voice. Exactly. But yes, I think if you're trying to allude to the fact that it is a practiced voice, or it is a conditioned voice, or it's a professional voice that is, been used. Yes, it's used professionally, but it's not been developed professionally. I could say that.
Okay, sir. Well, I've been told that Amitabh Bachchan Saab, sir, he was rejected by All India Radio and for his voice, basically. But today, his voice is known as one of the best voice in the country, and Mr. Amitabh Bachchan's voice and Mr. Chetan Sharma's voice, and कुछ आवाजें हैं जो वाकई में जो दिल में घर कर जाती हैं, sir. So that's the kind of a voice. I mean, that is the power of a voice. In fact, a lot of people would tell me that there was a time I want to be an actor. So they said, "Oh, but to be an actor, you need to be having a good resilient voice, like something like Nasir Saab's voice or Mr. Bachchan's voice or Mr. Chetan Sharma's voice." इस तरीके से. तो सर ये बताइए, did you have to work slight bit, because I would stammer as a child, and when I was been given examples of these great pillars. So did you ever have any? matlab, was it all effortless? And who were your idols in terms of on screen? Who would you would watch? Like we would watch you and we would learn. Speaker, anchor, or actor related to voice, particularly, sir.
Well, I think firstly, Major Shah, you do a great disservice to Mr. Bachchan and Mr. Nasiruddin Shah by calling me in the same space. They're legends you're talking about. I don't think I've achieved even a percent of what they've
Very
achieved
modest
in
anyhows.
their public demeanor, and of course their talent. But well, I have a baritone. I'm conscious of that, and I've used that in many ways in both my professional life as well as my personal life, and particularly in doing professional voiceovers as well. But the fact that, as I said, it's not a practiced voice. By the grace of God, it came very naturally, and the realization actually comes when you're able to find different ways of using that voice. And I believe that baritones also have their limitations, because you can only do very stereotypical activities and roles. So if you compare how voices have been, with the great actors, a lot of them have been people with very average voices, but the ability to have a high mode of expression, to be able to fit into a variety of roles, and bring about their multifluous talent up on the oar. So I think just to look at a person's voice can be very comforting, can be very complacent, but it's very limiting. Because at the end of it all, what can you do best if you've got a good voice? You can be a voiceover artist, nothing beyond that. But unless and until, even for being a voiceover artist, you must have the ability to act, to enact, to express, right? For which you have to get into a variety of characters, when you do that. And I think that's a far more impactful and effective way of actually unearthing your talent or portraying your voice. So just having a good voice is insufficient by any stretch of imagination. You mentioned about Mr. Bachchan being rejected by by AI. I think that's a great mantra. So if you want to be successful in life, you first should be rejected by All India Radio. I think that's one way of looking at it. But yeah, I spent a lot of time, in All India Radio myself. In fact, I started my career by being a radio jockey and working with Times FM, working with the IR as a freelancer. I used to really like music, and if I could, have ways of using my voice to intersperse between songs, it was great. And if you also, when I say a voice is limiting, I think the power of a voice also comes out with a great script. If you're able to write well, then you can use that voice, to a far greater impact and effect. So I think writing is equally as important as speaking. And I happen to always write my own script. So I think that is something that came to my rescue on several occasions. So, well, All India Radio, after which I did a lot of cricket commentary also for about 2-3 years. And that's when I also was able to understand the value of content. So while you have a good voice and you have a good script, you must have a lot of content in that script. That content can only come by deep interest and deep knowledge in the subject that you want to pursue. And I was very interested, very fascinated by cricket, not just as a game, but by it being a way of life in several ways. When you have your heroes, you see the way they perform, and they're not just on the field, even behind the field. You interview them, you talk to them, and you understand that their value systems, are immense. It's just not on the field; it's the things that you do off it. Those avenues and understandings of content, then became very important. And then, well, I've studied finance, I've studied marketing, I've studied business. That's been my subjects. I studied economics. Then I was able to use that, as being a commentator on financial markets, being a commentator on, on the business scenario, both in India and overseas. But again, it was the content part. So, you can have a great voice, you can have great delivery, you can have a great script, which will be very impressive. But to sustain that, you require good content, particularly if you work in the news environment, where you're actually engaged on a daily basis, not even a daily basis, perhaps on an hourly basis. So when I say that voice is limiting, I essentially mean it's only one cog in the entire wheel. It's just a one small facet of the entire repertoire. So yes, it does add, it does amplify, it does embellish, but it's limiting. And you must know how to
Right.
use it.
Right, sir. Sir, I've been told that as a child, there were a lot of things you want to do when you wanted to grow up. There were a lot of things, you had a lot of ambitions in mind. Could you just tell us a few of them? And before you stepped into journalism and before you entered into the field of education, right, that you are in right now, before you entered into so many things that you have yourself done a lot of things. Like, for example, cricket commentary is very different, and economics and business commentary is very, very different again. So, but then what was it? What was it? Your childhood dream that you wanted to see yourself
Well,
as?
if I put it across, I'd always want to be a child. That's the dream, to always be a child. And if when you are a child, then you'll always explore. Children are supposed to explore because they know no better. And when you continue the journey of as a child to explore, then you are able to open up a lot of facets of yourself, which are often undisclosed, often hidden, and often just wither away. And by doing that, one is able to experiment and then find their way. So everything that you mentioned was all a part of the exploration and the experimentation process. But of course, they all had my passion in them. I was very passionate about music when I did a lot of radio jockeying. I was very passionate about cricket. That took me up. I was extremely passionate as well as conscious of the financial market. Obviously, having studied it, I studied it because it was interesting. So that's where that's the other factor that came into play. But they're all a variety of things because I always wanted to constantly explore, and then of course education. So and then mentoring, then coaching, becoming a life coach, and a variety of those things, and then working across, about 20 industries, in various capacities. So that's all comes from exploration. If you look at the media, Major Shah, I don't know how much you know about this, but I'm not a studied journalist. I've studied a variety of subjects, but I never studied journalism. But I understood the basics of journalism. And the basics of journalism comes from curiosity. I'm coming back to the child factor. It's the curiosity that will allow you to explore, allow you to experiment, and do what you have to. And what's journalism? Journalism stems from curiosity. And the curiosity will allow you to ask the questions and keep asking the questions and then form an opinion based on and analyzing it. But again, questioning is the core of journalism. So that's been, the journey, and the ability to be able to do these various things only comes with the fact that you want to keep exploring. You want that child in you to keep telling you, "ये भी कर सकते हैं, ये भी कर सकते हैं, क्यों नहीं ये करते हैं?" And that's how you chart your own path. Yes, I mean, providence plays a great role in it. You may believe that a lot of things are destined. I do believe a lot of things are destined, but you're the navigator of that destiny also in so many ways. So yes, and even today I'm working in the field of education. That again, I mean, I moved out of a very cushy job from media because I wanted to explore the field of education, and I thought that there's a lot that can be done in education. And even media is a part of education. You are educating the people. Of course, you're informing them, but when you have analysis, you're also educating them about a lot that's going on in life. So yeah, a lot of variety, of things. They all come from just the desire to do a lot of things different and do a lot of things differently.
So, so you mentioned about to be a good speaker, one should always it only help you if you are a good writer as well. And so I had the fortune and the honor of being in a webinar with you once where you mentioned that Mark Twain had to prepare for several days before he delivered his first impromptu speech, and that is when I realized and I learned that there is nothing as an impromptu speech. There's a lot of homework, a lot of research, a lot of preparation. It might appear impromptu. It might appear that you are just speaking it off the cuff right now, but obviously they've had this, a lot of reading, writing, rehearsal perhaps, and a lot of things which have gone behind it in fact. So so tell me, as a child, I mean, you are still a child though, as you insisted upon that.
Thank you
But
for
when you
that. I like that.
so after your 12th, so what is your journey? So after 12, I'm very curious to know. Someone who I have actually idolized. I am personally very curious to know. I mean, I could have asked you on the phone as well. This is like as good as me asking you on the phone. In fact, I would like to ask you, what was your journey after your class 12th and thereafter?
Okay, the right answer would be that I had a very, very clear vision. It was a great strategy. I had seen my path in every place, and I got there. That was my objective, and I got there. That's the wrong answer because nothing of that happened. Everything that happened was per chance, was extremely haphazard, and I'm glad it happened that way. It gave me the opportunity of exploring within myself and the outside world, and I was just following my instinct. If you ask me what makes me distinct, perhaps it will be my instinct in so many ways. That's the way I did. I was able to navigate through my career, good, bad, or ugly. And I learned a lot along the way. I was always extremely fond of learning. Learning doesn't have to be textbook learning. I'm not much of a reader, not a voracious reader, but yes, I do read. But I believe that, at the core of learning is the word core, which is CORE, where C is for conversations, O is for observations, R is for reflection, and E is for experimentation and exploration. Now, that is the kind of learning which I've always subjugated myself to. And maybe that's helped me do a variety of things. Post class 12, of course, when I was in Calcutta, most of my, my fellow students, my peers, my colleagues, they all went overseas to study at that point in time. I was, I had to join my family business. Unfortunately, lost my father very early in life, so I needed to, cement my place in my family and obviously support myself financially. So I joined the business immediately, but I was always doing something alongside because I knew that I had to follow my passion at some point in time. And my passion always involved something that was literally something that involved speaking and writing. And as I said earlier, it was bilingual. So I knew I had to do that at some point of time. So it started as a by being a radio jockey, because that's the only way I'd be able to pursue two activities simultaneously. So I was, in fact, three. So I was studying, I was doing my MBA, I was studying a lot of other courses, and I was doing my business. I was also consulting and advising people when, as my exposure to my inner voice, my passion was radio. Then from radio, doing music and radio, I began to do cricket commentary. Then I began to do economic analysis on Doordarshan till I got a call one day from Dr. Prannoy Roy, and my gosh, I mean, imagine Dr. Roy, his office calling you up to offer you a full-time job in NDTV, and well, I was not prepared for a full-time job. That was not my lookout in life. I've never ever thought I'm going to do a full-time job, particularly coming from a business family, and secondly being very exploratory by nature. I don't think anything would be able to confine me in my perception that I'm a full-time job was I'd be limited to a certain place. But then I think a job in media is very different from any other job. It allows you so much of space, so much of freedom to do what you want to. You actually are an entrepreneur in so many ways because you're responsible for your show. And entrepreneurship is all about responsibility. So that was my journey, and then of course I continued, from there to TV Today and CE, and then worked with overseas companies, and then did a variety of things. I think I was blessed in many ways, Major Shah, of doing a complete circuit, which I think is the most unique part of what my career has been. I assume a lot of youngsters would also be watching this show. Is sometimes you chase opportunities, sometimes you allow opportunities to come your way, and you can only allow opportunities to come your way when you're open to them, right? And to be open to them, you have to observe. You have to, you have to desire those things to come. You can't get complacent. So basically, because of that, I think I had the unique disposition as well as the opportunity and the luck of having done a 360 degree in education, in electronic media. What do I mean by 360 degrees? I think I'm perhaps maybe the only person, actually, if I come to think of it, who's performed three roles: that of the editor of a channel, of a CEO of a channel, and also being a founder CEO, which means having started up the channel from scratch. So why are these unique, and why do I say that it's something which perhaps nobody's ever done? Because each of these three roles are at cross purposes. They're always conflicting. I mean, the CEO of a media company and the editor of a company and a founder of a company have three very different and often conflicting roles. You see, the editor is driven by ideology, the CEO is driven by revenue, the founder is driven by cost controls. And they're all at cross purposes, they're always conflicting. And to perform all those three roles, which means you've actually done a 360 degree in electronic media, which I don't think people have had the opportunity to do. I was fortunate enough to do it. I was also desirous to do it because I come from a business background. So for me to, and I've set up a lot of businesses for other people also, including myself. So I was always fascinated by the idea of finding something, being a founder of something, or doing a startup, which I did for a few channels, a lot of regional channels, and then the last channel, the national channel, India Ahead, as a founder CEO. Before that, editor, of the channel. So that's that role, and then the CEO as well. So these this is such a enriching experience when you get to know all three conflicting areas. How do they think? How they're supposed to think, and how you can marry this, align it, and come out with a product which is, I wouldn't say is beneficial to all, but at least acceptable to
Right. Sir, tell me about, see, you have proved a point that, you don't have to be a mass communication graduate to get into journalism. It's basically common sense. You got to understand things. Similarly, the same logic I'll give, you don't have to go to NSD to become an actor. If you have it in you, you have it in you. So a lot of people would take formal training. One is like you can speak German and you've done a course in German. So if you speak German, you can go to Berlin, you can find your way about there. So you have proved that point. Now, sir, tell me one thing. But when you got a call from NDTV from Dr. Pranay Roy, so initially, how did you react to it, and how did you adapt to coming about doing a regular 9 to 5 job, sir?
Okay, so it's a great question simply because I'm still in a dilemma as to how I should have reacted. So I put on my most casual approach, and I just took it as it came. I said, "Wow, it's great." For me, it was well, just another television screen. I was working with Doordarshan on a variety of programs at that point of time. But I mean, NDTV and Dr. Roy was the signature. It couldn't get bigger and better in television than that. So it was, of course, very overwhelming, very intimidating earlier on. But navigating myself, yes, people in the family were not particularly happy because I was running the business with my family, and just be able to overnight take a decision, of stepping out of it was not easy. Not easy for me financially, not easy for me emotionally. Uh, but well, that is when I chose to a path to following my passion. And I think that is what was my driving force. The fact that to speak and be on air like I am with you was my high, was my energy. And whenever I felt intimidated, whenever I felt overwhelmed, whenever I felt threatened, which is normal place in the work environment, uh, this is what came to the core. I all I had to do was just sit back, close my eyes, and see why am I here, right? I'm here because of this. As long as I can pursue this, everything else is noise. And why this is different in media vis-a-vis other organizations, as I said a little earlier, you have a property for yourself. So when I'm doing a show on air, that's my property. As far as I'm concerned, I'm responsible for that. And I don't need to be judged by my peers. My judge is the audience, right? And as long as I'm able to resonate with them, I'm fine. So in a normal organization, you could be a victim of bias, you could be a victim of political tangles, you could be a victim of nepotism, you could be a victim of economic and social disadvantages. But in television, because you have that opportunity to be able to connect in a space with an unknown variety of an audience who are going to gauge you at some point of time, right? Then you have the freedom to do what you want to, uninterrupted. So, well, what can be the problems in an organization, right? In an organization, if you're an anchor, at best, if let's say you have things going against you, they'll give you a little lesser preferred slot, right? You may not have a prime time show, you have a lesser show, but you have that show. You may not have a few lakh people watch you, you have a few thousand people watching you. But even that for you is engagement, is exposure, is fulfilling, is satisfying. And this does not happen with every other job. That's what makes it unique, right? So in every other job, you may just be sidelined, whatever it is. You may not have the ability to express or yourself or bring the best out of you. But here you have that in television media. If you choose to be an anchor, I'm just talking about myself. So it was a fascinating journey, I think, all throughout that. And that time, of course, the prowess of NDTV was very different. It was the signature, it was the monopoly in several ways. There wasn't much of competition. And I was a beneficiary of that as well, of being, and then, of course, being with some of the finest journalists in the country. They're all now heading various, channels today. They've all, come from NDTV. Yes, the disadvantage I had was that I joined the profession very late, in the sense that I joined it at least 10 years later than everybody else because I had a lot to do. I had to, take care of my family, take care of my business. But of course, I was always skilling and involved in something. And this was not the chosen path. So in many ways, that I think was a bit of a disadvantage because, you have that much of a shorter time to be able to do things. You have a little less exposure in that field. So you're able to you have to quick start everything for yourself. That can be a bit of a challenge, but otherwise, I think it was an extremely enriching journey.
Sure. So tell me your life after now. You're in education fields. Tell us a bit about the education field that you are in right now at this point of time, sir.
All right. So once I concluded my last assignment, with India ahead, because at a stage I decided for sure that I've had enough of electronic media for various reasons. For me, the atmosphere in media had become very polarized, had become extremely negative. Something it was not a natural part of my DNA. By
Mm.
as a persona, I am positive, right? I look at things in a positive manner. Uh, I look at things in a progressive manner, and I'm not judging media out here at all. I have no claim and I have no position to be judging media, and I have no expertise beyond the point to be judging media. But the environment of media uh, has become a little vitiated and highly negative. So it was not aligning with what I wanted to do. Right. For instance, if you look at the last channel I launched as the founder CEO, I was trying to look at the good side of things. So my tagline was "It's good news," because for me, why does everything have to be negative? I mean, why do we have to only highlight the negatives in society? I understand that people want to see the negatives because that's a psychology play. It makes them more curious. It gives them the opportunity to condescend people, to judge people, to opine. Right. It also makes them look, try to feel a safe space that they're not in that negative space. Try to look at other people in different ways. So I understand the psychology behind that, but that doesn't mean that we as a young nation. And when I talk about a young nation, I'm saying half our population is sub 25, and we're going to be the major workforce in the future. Over the next 3 decades. So if we are not going to inculcate positivity and progress in the generation to come, I think that will be a huge disservice. So it is important
Exactly.
not to only portray, that only negative things are happening in your country, or they're just, stereotypical political arguments that take place. There's a lot of good that's happening. There's a lot of good. I mean, you can't run a country of this magnitude without good. So who's going to show that good? So that's why the intention was to, was to launch when I launched India Ahead, the tagline, it's good news. So the idea was to showcase good news, and we did that as far as possible. The variety of our taglines was, we debate to decide, not to divide. We stir the conscience, not controversies. You know, we don't just look at questions, we look at answers. We just don't look at problems, we look at solutions. And you can only find solutions once you're progressive, once you're positive. And we try to do that in so many ways. Yes, it's not easy for it to work. I understand that. But that's the way I'm wired. And how does one, if it's not happening in media, how else could you do it? And I often, as a student of economics, I was trying to figure out that what is the next step one can do, which can contribute not just, socially, but also be economically sound. And when I was studying economics through the eyes of media, I realized I coined a term called HEATS. HEATS is an acronym for health, education, agriculture, technology, and sustainability. And my understanding was, Major Shah, that if you're in any of these sectors, all of which have enormous potential and are progressive and are doing phenomenally well, and you're not doing well, then it's your problem. It's not the sector's problem, right? So first, I mean, is to identify where the possibilities lie. So HEATS is where the possibility, uh, was available from my understanding, economically. Then I began to eliminate the areas which don't align with me, right? So I think if you want to do something in health, you must have some level of formal medical education, which I don't have. So
Mm.
eliminate it. Agriculture is something I understand, but I'm still not at the core. I've never covered agriculture as a journalist. I haven't really stayed in rural India to understand the concept of agriculture beyond a point. So it doesn't work. I'm not a techie. It's perhaps one of my weaknesses. So technology is out. Sustainability is something which I'm extremely fond of, but it's a little far-fetched. It's not easy to start an enterprise now. So then I came to education, and I was trying to look at why would I be good in education. So then I looked at my own CV. I looked at my own education. I've done part of my education from overseas institutions, from London Business School, from Harvard, and I look at those things and I said, okay, maybe this will be suitable as a profile. Then I looked at what is do I have the ability to be in education? I must understand the psyche of an educator in so many ways. And then, well, I went back to my CV and I saw, yes, I've done my master's, as an LLP practitioner. I've done my business coaching. I've mentored a lot of CEOs in the country, and my life coaching abilities. So I do perhaps am aligned to the thought of education. So it all sunk in. I said, okay. And then while also doing a few events in India ahead, we realized that education was one of the sectors that was paying. So I thought that both socially and economically, it would be a good fit. And also, I happen to be one of the founder board members of Shrishti, which is an NGO that works in the education space, and also, a regular contributor to the Mountain Children Forum, which again, imparts education. So education was something that came around everywhere, as I said, socially and economically. That's what made me decide. And also the approach which I took to education was media. So I did shows, of media, but instead of my panelists, well, there were priorly politicians and economics, and there were industrialists, sports people, and Bollywood personalities. Here it was principals, vice chancellors, and teachers, and students, and parents. That's the only difference. My approach has been exactly the same. So I do the same thing in so many ways, but with a purpose. And we formed something called edumate.tv. Edumate, the meaning of edumate essentially is to bring people together in the education fraternity, all the stakeholders. And the tagline is higher to hire, which is HIGHER to HIRE, because I strongly believe that one of the greatest disservices that this country is doing, irrespective of all its effort, is not in unemployment, it's unemployability, and which is leading to a lot of disguised unemployment. So that is the problem statement which we're trying to solve. And hire to hire means you take a student out from high school and you try to map his journey and intervene wherever required till he gets hired. So he's hired means either he's hired on a job or he becomes an entrepreneur and hires himself. So if you look at Edumate and you look at my life journey, Major Shah, it's controlled by a letter called E. So I've worked in the interface of electronic media, of education, and entrepreneurship. So I've been an entrepreneur. I mean, even while I was pursuing my media career, I was always an entrepreneur. Not just belonging to a business family, I've set up businesses. A lot of them have failed, a lot of them have done well. But that's something that excites me as well. So this combination, of electronic media, entrepreneurship, and education got in several ways, presented and saw the light of day through edumate.tv.
Right, sir. So absolutely. So I want to make a confession to you. Like the way now the right time for me to tell you about this. The way when you heard from Dr. Pranay Roy's office. So one fine day, it was the year 2019 in August, and I heard from Neeraj and Neeraj, who were the guest coordinators with the India Ahead channel. And they told me that they would want me to be on the show, and Jujar Singh would be anchoring it, and they would be Chetan Sharma on the panel. I was like, say again, is it so? Sir, I had prayer commitments elsewhere for something else. I cancelled it all out to be on the same show with Mr. Chetan Sharma. Anyhow, it doesn't stop there.
It's so kind of you. I'm really blessed for that. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. It's very
You
kind.
may not be knowing this. So I was all out. Okay. Because I had been a very big fanboy. I'll be very, very honest with you, sir. So I was like all out to impress you. I was like, I don't have a friend. I call him. I'm going to be on the show with Chetan Sharma. I got to impress him, dude. So tell me, give me some points so that, when I look, I should appear like some intellectual speaking out there. He should give me a pat on my back after I speak. So he was on this panel,
So what you've told
and
me very politely, and I thank you for the compliments, is that I give the intellectual vibe. I'm very happy to hear that. I don't think my wife would think that, but I am happy to hear that. I don't think my wives and daughters would believe that, but yeah, I'm happy to hear that. I perhaps should show them a part of this recording. Anyway, yes.
so
Thank you for
I,
your
I was sitting on the panel with you, and then you just asked me some questions, and I was trying to think of the answers. The first, but I was just keeping my fingers crossed. I hope he comes to you first, and then after he comes to you, then he'll come to me, so I can pick up some dots from there, and then I can join them, and then I can answer. And luckily, it came to you, and then you said you and certain terminology I had not even heard actually, to be very very honest. So I joined the dots from there, and I'm happy I was sitting at Google. I was not in frame.
Well,
So
well, it's good to hear that. But although I can tell you, I don't think that's very good journalism. Journalism has to be very simple and direct. So if you're
no,
using language which
it was
is
simple.
not
No, it was
acceptable
simple.
or not easily understood,
No,
it's
no,
actually not the
it
right
was
thing.
simple. It was simple for everyone to connect with. That was you
Right,
gave that in a very simple form. But there were some terminologies like some
right,
technical terms
right.
of
I
certain
understand
things. So those technical terms I wasn't aware of. I was talking about that, sir.
that. All right, right, right. So one part of what we do also I mean, as a part of Edumate is counsel people. It's part of career counseling, and it's a very very you know invigorating process. Simply because the choices are just so many, right? And there's a huge demand supply mismatch, and just not just choices are many, the choices are changing, and the needs within those choices are also changing. And we are coming from a country where the workforce supply is increasing constantly, right? But the demand is not keeping up to it. So, I mean, thankfully now we have a lot of women in the workforce. We have the males in the workforce. We have a lot of aspirants moving out from the villages to the towns, and the towns to the cities. They're all hunting for jobs, and they've got to be employable. First, they've got to be counseled, then they become employable. So the opportunities are immense. The responsibility is even higher. So it's very exciting and very challenging as well. For us, particularly because we have a very strong belief, Major Shah, that whatever happens, we need to get the best out of the student. Uh, Profits, values, everything is secondary. We just need to do that correctly. Because that's been the way I've lived my life. I mean, if you ask me that what is it that you wake up in the morning that drives you, what is it that catalyzes you into doing what you have to? So in one word, it would be contribution. Unless and until I'm able to contribute to somebody's life, I mean, I just don't feel that I've lived that day. So in many ways, Edumate.tv, represents that.
So, and one last question before we let you go, sir. So, you have been at the helm of a national television channel, and you were, in fact, the founding director of that, the founding CEO of that, I would say. And, sir, in your perception, though you already gave a disclaimer earlier that you feel that you're not qualified enough to speak on or pass a judgment on media or whatever. But, sir, in your opinion, so is it all a number game? It's all about a channel उस पे TRP कितनी मिलेगी more than the actual news, more than the people should know कि ये fact है. लेकिन ना, like for example, I conducted an experiment, sir. I took out two videos on YouTube. One was a total entertainment. I mean, brainless. I mean, I didn't require, you don't need much brains to watch it actually. You need some entertainment. You can just sit back and relax. And the other was, it would set you thinking. It would keep your gray cells activated. But simple experiment like that, an entertainment one on YouTube had a lot of views, whereas the one which would actually get your gray cells tangling, that had very few views. So is it all about numbers, about TRP, or is it's about conveying a message, the news to the awam, to the janta, to the public, sir? In general, I mean, I'm not without naming any channel in particular or anything. In general, so medium. It's not only electronic media; it can be print, it can be anything. reaching out to the masses?
So the first thing when you said about my disclaimer about not being qualified to speak on media, it's simply because I don't think anybody is qualified to speak on media, right? Media is not something that you should be speaking on in the sense of giving an opinion on. And the reason for that being is that media is changing by the day, right? The basics are the same, but it's evoluting in so many manners. Whatever you may feel you're qualified to speak about it today, but tomorrow technology is going to prove you wrong with some other facet of media. And social media is an absolutely new animal. So I'm saying just the dynamism of the sector disallows you to, in fact, ever feel that you're qualified enough to be able to speak about it beyond a point. So everybody's got a very limited view. I think that's important to recognize. And the earlier you recognize that, the better you will be servicing yourself and your viewers in whatever you choose to do in media. Now, I think what you talked about is a very was often our editorial discussions was about choosing between information and entertainment, coined words called infotainment, variety of these things. And then, as I said, classically, there's the the argument which I put forth, the CEO and the editor is one is driven by ideology, one is driven by revenues, and of course, the founder driven by costs. And that's where the conflict actually happens as to which is right and which is wrong. Is there a right or a wrong? Is there a correct way? Is there a better way? Is there an in-between way? Is the in-between way right? Because there is a space for entertainment separately. There should be a space for news separately. So these arguments are all there. So who's to say what is right and what is wrong? I mean, it's like when we were taught in economics and business, the customer is always right. So in a way, you can say the viewer is always right. Now, if you go by that logic, the viewer is always right, then whatever gives you the highest TRPs is right. But the fact is that TRPs themselves are not transparent. So my objection starts from that, from the benchmarking itself. If you go on social media, you have the likes that itself can be orchestrated. So is that right? I'm not quite sure. So it just depends on what is it that you want to do. Now, you can look at this. I assume you're talking about, am I correct to understand that you're talking this from a career point of view or a judgment point of view or from the entrepreneur's point of view?
Both, sir.
So again, from the entrepreneur's point of view, which is the vision of the channel, you have to set out your vision statement and your mission statement. What is it that you want to do, right? If it is that you want to, like, you have a BBC and you have Fox News, you can make out it's very apparent that they come from very different genres of thought, right? And if you think that you can run a BBC, profitably, I think that's a misnomer. It's not possible because the amount of investments it takes to bring out what BBC does will not get you the price. Because eventually, if you were to bring something to the viewer at his convenience at a particular cost, you will have to compromise on a lot of things. You'll have to throw in things of entertainment which the viewer wants to see. And a lot of the so-called tamasha which you see on television and the theatrics you see on television is with that thought in mind. How do you make yourself viewed by more people, not by more nuanced people, because there is no definition of being more nuanced. So the question you asked was in the point of view of grey cells versus something that's very abject and base and something which is thoughtless but entertaining. What you should choose. I just think that you need to be a part of what you want. There should be everything that's served. Across the spectrum, because you have so many channels. You have 500 odd channels in this country, Major Shah, and all of them, would be serving you something. So it's up to you as a viewer what you want to take. Right? The nuanced viewer, he may be lesser in numbers, but he may choose to pay more. So if you go into a subscription model, which you charge a premium, you get more research stuff. So the people wants to go to that can. Well, if you want a free, an FTA model where you have more viewers coming in, you use the sponsorship route to generate income for yourself. Then you choose obviously what's going to attract more people to watch. So you will border around entertainment, and that's fair. So there's nothing that's cast in stone, nothing that's wrong or right. I mean, it's just the way you approach it, right? Because even if you look at, one thing you have to understand that all of this, whether it's nuanced journalism or it's, you can say, thoughtless journalism, they all come with a thought. They all come, there's a method in the madness. There's an art of doing it. It's the creative element in even doing something which seems thoughtless. As they say, comedy is done by the most intellectual people. It's very difficult to enact comedy. So even to be very entertaining, and sometimes at the cost of being thought-provoking, requires a strong element of creativity. So they both have got their place. I mean, it's a misnomer to believe that people who are doing things which are very well viewed and are entertaining are not creative and not thoughtful and very easy to do. It's quite the converse. So I just think, as a nation, as a sector, we just have to look at being more accommodative in whatever we do, and stop judging. There's nothing or right or wrong. I think there's a space for everybody,
Right.
to watch what they want to watch. And so, look, even if you want to judge, even if I want to say this is right or wrong, social media is going to prove me wrong, whether I like it or not. Right? Eventually, there'll be somebody who's doing something else, and he'll be probably liked more than me. Who am I to say that what I'm doing is right? So, yeah, I say that you should do things honestly. I mean, that's
Right,
my
sir.
philosophy of life. Whatever you do it honestly. Even if you want to be dishonest to your viewer, be honest about doing it. In many
Oh,
ways,
that's a
if you
wonderful,
know what I'm saying.
a wonderful way of
Yeah.
putting it, sir.
So
Absolutely.
just
So,
do it honestly, James. Yeah.
and one lastly, and I would need to refer to my number because I got a call from my office once, and I've saved the person's number as so and so, and then Chetan Sharma. So I'll just tell you the name.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll have to. My phone just hung. So this is this lady who called from your office about a year back.
Okay.
So
Right.
and so the moment she took your name, I was like, just a moment, ma'am, just a moment. I can't help but take you on a con call with a friend of mine. And I took her on the con call with a friend of mine. And I said, because I've been telling my friends, about my favorite speakers here, there, and there's one lady called Lisa Nichols who lives in the West somewhere. I've never met her.
Okay.
I've only follow her on social media, and so I love her delivery. And then of course you are there, and a couple of other people are there as well. So I asked my friend, okay, now there's this lady over here. Just name. I don't want to sound too biased or too just because I'm speaking to her. Just name a few of my favorite speakers. So of course the name of Lisa Nichols came up. Okay, fine. And the name of Chetan Sharma came out. Like, there you are. That is what I wanted you to say. So मैं आपको भेजता हूँ. I'll message you. I'll tell you who this person was. And I told this lady from your office to do convey this to you. I wonder if she ever conveyed it to you or not. But sir, it's been such an honor and a pleasure being in. Yes, sir. You were saying something, sir. To be in conversation with you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
No, it's an absolute honor for me and a pleasure for me. Thank you for bringing out the side of me which I normally don't reveal in a public space. A lot of things which are. I mean, I am a private person. Been for most, even though being in the public forum, I like to be very private in a lot of ways. But I think you got a lot out of me. So you're the better journalist than me for sure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. What an honor. What an
Thank
honor.
you.
Thank you very much, sir. Jan, sir.
Pleasure
Good
for
evening,
you.
sir.
All the best to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.